But I believe that you can also do it in half the time. Because I'm going to let you in on a little secret about myself. I've had it made clear to me that the money in this industry is in selling the service. Then shouldn't I spend all of my time learning how to sell that service? Oh, please, 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 could I get this listing? That's not how this happens. And if you want an entertaining evening, get yourself a bottle, go home with your significant other, and listen to that presentation. You would know that in 2019, I was 17 years in the real estate business, and my passion for selling real estate started to wane, caused my ability to connect with and close clients to fade also. So I went to my coach, Aaron at the time, and he came to me with two questions. He said, Mark, when you're working with your sellers, he said, what is your intention? Is your intention to take or to give? Is it to seek to understand, or is it to be right? Now, those are basic questions. And yet, when Aaron asked me those questions, they seemed complicated to me. And they made me feel uncomfortable internally. And I realized in that moment that the discomfort that I was feeling internally came from a truth that I'm not proud of. You see, I was looking at clients for what I could get from them versus how I could serve them at a higher level, right? Now, this is an opposing intention. Here we're supposed to be working with people, and I have the wrong perception. That time turned me around, right? So these questions that Aaron asked me, they turned my life around because they started to help me see things in a different way. And they also helped me bring back my passion in selling real estate. Without me realizing it though, this opposing intention caused me to be afraid to ask clients to sign with me. It made me feel like I wasn't worthy enough. So with that said, I spent the next 6 years being coached with Aaron. And I spent a lot of time working on and understanding what sellers' motivation was and the right questions that I could ask them so that I could become clear on what's most important to them, which is why we're all doing this job, right? I no longer worry about what I'm going to say in my presentation. I no longer worry for my coaching and mastermind clients and the 400 plus agents that have signed up with Elite Builders in the last 3 years, because I know that each and every day, all of us, we are working on our presentations. We're role playing, we're doing script rehearsal, and most importantly, we're also working on this. We're working on our mindset, because it doesn't matter what words that you have in your vocabulary. If this isn't right, you'd be just like me in 2019. And that's where I was failing. And I've helped hundreds of agents just like you become successful in their real estate careers. And once I implemented the listing presentation that I learned from Aaron that we're going to hear about today, my listing appointments to listing closed ratio went from 60 to 80%. What that did for me the first year that I got out of my own way and actually started using it, it brought 13 more listings into my business that year, which closed me another $130,000 in commissions. How many of you would like to do that? Woo-hoo! This is very real. So thank you, you're in the right spot. I believe that everybody in this room has the ability to do everything that I've done with the right strategy, approach, and skills and the right way of thinking. But I believe that you can also do it in half the time. Because I'm going to let you in on a little secret about myself. I spent 9 years doing a presentation that was from the perspective of authoritative. Do you know what that means? In other words, I'm the agent, I know everything, right? Versus coming from a position where we can guide our sellers to self-discover and make smart market decisions based on them understanding it. The National Association of Realtors tells us that for every 10 listing presentation that an agent will go on, they'll receive 2 listings. So for the next 40, 45 minutes or so, we're going to get very clear on 3 things. Number 1, what we believe about ourselves and our sales process. Number 2, the importance of role play and practice. And number 3, how and why we use Aaron's listing presentation, as I shared, not to come from a position of authority, but rather to guide our sellers to self-discover. How strong is your belief that you are 100% absolutely the right person to be helping your clients with the largest financial decision that they're going to be able to make in the next coming year or so. That's key. And really, to understand this further, my coach Aaron had us, our mastermind, he had us answer or look at 5 statements, and he had us rate these statements on a scale of 1 to 10. Because our beliefs, what we think, affect our behaviors, right? And our behaviors, ultimately, they affect our outcomes. So the first one, salespeople make the world a better place. There's going to be 5 statements. Next statement, I believe in what I'm selling so much that I sell it as hard and aggressive as I can. Number 3, I know exactly who needs my product and why it helps them. Number 4, I keep a pulse on techniques and market strategies and apply them so that I can deliver better value to more clients. Number 5, salespeople are looking to help me to make a better buying decision. So the whole purpose and my goal of this is hopefully this is helping you benchmark your beliefs. Because for me, it showed me where I still have room to improve. Even today, if I took this test today, I still have some room to improve. And so the other thing to note is as you go back and you look through this and you see what you were writing down, what you wrote down is actually a reflection of your belief in yourself. So hopefully that gave you a little insight. I'm not proud of this, but it took me 3 years to learn this listing presentation because I had to overcome my own beliefs to finally just get with it and say, all right, Aaron, who was my coach, he sold 2,000 homes in his career. 80% of those homes were listings. And I had to get and finally realize he's using this. There must be something to it. It works. So once I got out of my own way, then I started memorizing it, yet I was still stuck with the belief that closing is bad. I don't have the right to close my client. That was going through my mind, right? And yet now I know that closing is a tool, it's a key, and it opens many doors. And if we use it correctly in the right timeline of our presentation, it actually makes things go so much smoother and so much easier. Question that I have for myself and that my coach had for me is what could have been different for me if I would have been willing to just allow this process to come into me sooner? I would have been way more productive and it wouldn't have taken as long. And that's significant, especially when we all have lives where we want to spend more time with family, where we want to spend more time with the people that mean the most to us, right? So what is it that you're not willing to look at? You don't have to tell me. Just I'm asking this so that you all self-reflect. And then if you address this, would your business get easier? Would you be more productive? That's why we're all here today. So what a perfect question, though, that is, especially as we go to consider the importance of practice and role play. Remember, I shared with you a listing agent or an agent will go on 10 appointments, according to the National Association of Realtors, and they'll receive 2 listings. That's a lot of work, isn't it? Right? So how many of us in here have a license to sell real estate? Show of hands. Almost everybody in the room. We all have a license to sell real estate, which allows us to do the same thing, right? But do we all earn the same amount of money? No, we don't. Why is that? I've had it made clear to me that the money in this industry is in selling the service. So I guess if that's the case, then shouldn't I spend all of my time learning how to sell that service? Because some people know how to sell the service better than us, right? And if we can just get involved and engage with others that want to know this as much as we do, then we can all grow. Now, the cool part about skills is that we can learn them. Yet it implies practice. So I'm curious, show of hands, how many people in here role play and practice daily, on a daily basis? How interesting. Let me ask myself a question. Do I have C habits and I'm praying for an A+ life? Oh, please, 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 could I get this listing? That's not how this happens. When we put the time into becoming a professional, that's when we get the professional results. So fortunately, when I started in real estate, I had proximity to agents that wanted what I wanted as much as I did. And I also had access to a coach. And so we would meet And I spent 9 years practicing 6 days a week. I'm an overnight success, right? I would find the agents that wanted to know this listing presentation as much as I did. And every month I would go to 4 different places. I'd drive to Longwood, we'd meet at one agent's. This was before Zoom, right? We couldn't get together on Zoom. It was back in the old days. And I would go to Longwood one week, I'd go to Altamont the next week, I'd go to St. Cloud one week, right? And then everybody would meet me here in Dr. Phillips. But we took it very seriously and we critiqued ourselves, and that's how we grew. And then I had a coach. My coach asked me to record my listing presentations. And if you want an entertaining evening, get yourself a bottle, right? Go home with your significant other and listen to that presentation. I was just like, oh my God, did I really say that? Did I just verbally vomit all over that client? It was ugly. And yet, if we're not willing to experience the pain of the ugliness, then how would we grow? So how long does it take to prepare and go on a listing presentation? 3-4 hours, would you guys agree? From the time that we set the appointment, we pre-qualify the client, we do the research on their property, we send out all the documents in advance so they have time to review it, we drive to the appointment, then we preview their home, and then we drive home, right? About 4 hours, right? Okay. So think about it this way. If I spend 40 hours going on appointments and I only get 2 listings, what have I done with the other 32 hours? Would it have been better time spent if I focused on practicing and getting really good at the presentation so then I could get a better outcome? I mean, here's something to consider. The National Association of Realtors tells us, right, 10 appointments, 2 listings. There are people in this room that are going on 10 appointments and they're receiving 8 or 9 listings. Think of what that would do for you in your business. Now, let's go through the listing presentation. But I want to start off and let everybody know, this listing presentation is completely orchestrated. And what do I mean by that? From 1999 to 2008, I sang with the Orlando Opera. I was in the chorus, I wasn't a principal, and yet I would receive a score 12 weeks in advance of us performing the show. I'd spend the first 4 weeks just chanting the words and getting them to rhythm. 2 times a day, half hour each time. Because all the shows were not in the language that I spoke. They were all in Italian, they were in German, or they were in French. And sometimes they were in Latin, which was really mind-blowing. It was crazy. So I'd spend 4 weeks practicing getting the words down, right? Doing it to rhythm. And then we would go, after 4 weeks, we could meet with Maestro. And we'd have piano tech, where we'd then put all those words that I spent all that time learning to music. Then we'd spend about 3 weeks in piano tech with no orchestra yet. Then the 3rd week after that, we would get into blocking, where essentially they're like, you stand here when you're singing this note. You stand there. So then we would learn where we stood on the stage, and then from there, Maestro came in and we put it all to the orchestra, and then the principals came in, the people that made the big dollars, and then production week was at least 6 hours a day. So that's a lot of practice, right? That's a lot of rehearsal. What do most agents do? They wing it, right? If I was to be involved in a production by the Orlando Opera, which is professional, right? That's the work that I had to put in. I don't know, maybe that's where the ethic came from. But with most agents, they wing it. Look, would you list your home with me? That's not a presentation. That is not a presentation. That is not what will give a seller confidence to turn over to you selling the most expensive asset that they have in their lives. Which is why agents don't list property in high volume. Unless people know, love, and trust them, like their mother, right? They're not going to get the deal. Having a scripted presentation makes our results consistent. I will go on 72 listing presentations this year, and I will sell 60 listings. I'm doing the same thing over and over and over and over. Because when we go to the doctor's office, does the doctor, I mean, if you think about it, if your doctor wanted to wing it, or your pilot wanted to wing it, let's say you got on an airplane and you see the pilot and he just says, I'm going to give up the checklist today, never mind. Who would be the first person off of that plane? I would not want to be on that plane, right? Or let's say your doctor says, you know what, Leanne, I know you. Let's just go have coffee and I'm not going to do the checklist before your surgery. I'd be the first person off that table, right? So this is very real. It's about spending time learning how to give sellers what they need to make a good decision. With that said, let's get into the presentation. The first part of the presentation, there's 3 segments to this presentation. The first part is from the time you get to the door to the time you start to talk about price. Then there's the pricing portion of the presentation. And then there's handling objections and closing. What I want you all to know is, I've been told by my husband and I've told by many people that my natural look of my face is a frown. I scare people. You can see these lines in my face, right? So as I go to the door, when I'm getting prepared, this is me. Right? That's kind of scary, especially if the seller's looking out their window when I'm walking to the door, then it's really scary. But by the time I get to the door, at least this turns into this. And I'm smiling. So when they open the door, it's, "Hi, my name's Mark. Thank you so much for having me out. I appreciate the opportunity to see what your fine home has to offer." And then I'm going to ask, "Would you like me to take my shoes off?" Because whose house is it? It's their house, right? Now, even if they say no, if I see a pile of shoes on the floor, my shoes are coming off. Because it's all about respecting them. This is their space. Then, as we walk through, I'll ask, "Is it okay if we take a quick look at your home?" And then we're walking through the home. So I'm curious, when we get offers that come in, are you going to want to include some of this in the property, or did you want to take it all with you? Now, what did I just do there? When who gets offers that come in? You. When we get offers. If you notice, the second sentence, I'm closing, right? This is a little subtle close that leads ultimately to the end. Because here's the thing. How many times does somebody have to hear something before they actually start to believe it?
3 to 8 to motivate.
3 to 8 to motivate. Thank you. And honestly, I think I need to hear them 15 times. So think about it this way. If we wait all the way to the end of our presentation to actually get all 8 of those closes in, that's going to be weird. That's going to be awkward, right? So I'm going to state something because, all right, think about it this way. When you go to the doctor's office, they lead you, don't they? "Mr. Ramey, fill this clipboard out. Mr. Ramey, stand on that scale." I don't want to stand on that scale. "Mr. Ramey, stick your arm out so that I can take your blood pressure. Mr. Ramey, the doctor will be with you in about 5 minutes." That gives us confidence. It gives us confidence that the doctor and his team knows what's going on. So as we're walking through the house, I'm going to say, "So would you prefer that we have a seat at the kitchen table or the dining room table?" Because I don't know about you all, but has this ever happened to you where somehow I end up sitting on the couch and like the seller's way over there and I got a little doggy on my lap and I'm like, "How did I get here? How did I even get here?" And how can you present from that perspective, right? You can't. So I want to control this, not from a position of control like ego control, but so that they feel like we feel like when we go to the doctor's office. Does that make sense? So now we're sitting at the table, and we never want the table between us because that's a barrier, right? A table between us is a barrier, and now they're on one side and I'm on the other side. Nope, I want one person here and one person here. And there's a reason for that. We want to feel like we're connected, right? So I'm going to look them in the eye and I'm going to say, first and foremost, I just want to say thank you for providing me the opportunity to share some information with you and help you with the sale. I always like to begin these conversations by asking a few questions just to make sure that we're all on the same page. Would that be okay? So the first question that I have, which I really believe I know the answer to already based on our initial conversation on the phone before we met today, is that you all have definitely decided that you would like to have this property sold. You're not interested in doing something else with it, are you? Like holding on to it or renting it? No, we're not interested in doing that. Now, how would I know that already? Pre-qualify. Thank you. If we're not pre-qualifying, it's kind of like the doctor saying, you don't need the clipboard. And then you go in, "I got a headache." "Well, let's do surgery." We don't know who it is that we're helping and if we actually can help them. Does that make sense? So we know that, and we also want to protect our mindset. Have you ever gone on an appointment where you get through the whole presentation and I got all 8 closes in about 30 seconds done, And then the seller looks at me and says, thank you. We're thinking about it. We never asked the question 3 different ways before we went to their house. Do you absolutely have to sell the home? I know that you want to have the home sold. How does your wife feel about this? Is she as excited about this move as you are? Is it an option for you perhaps to keep the home and still make the move? Would you ever consider renting this house? Do you see how many ways we can ask that question so that we know that when we go to this appointment, we're not wasting our time. We're not spinning our wheels. This is real, right? Okay, so back into the role play. That leads me to my second question, which I'm also pretty sure I know the answer to, is that we would want to position the property price-wise. Whenever we talk about price, smile. Price-wise to sell. We're not interested in giving it away, that's for sure. And yet at the same time, I imagine that you're really not interested in having your home sit on the market for an extended period of time, like 6 or 7 months just testing the market. Husband will look at the wife, wife's like, we are not sitting here 6 or 7 months. That becomes real then. Then the next question, that leads me to the next third question, which I'm also pretty sure I know the answer to, is that I'm aware that I sent you out some information in advance of us connecting. I sent you out a link to my client reviews. Have you had an opportunity to look at those? We have over 120 5-star reviews. You did great. So I guess my question is, have you guys already decided that you'd like for me to help you with the sale? We're getting that one out right up front. 50% of the time I get a yes. If you could get 50% of the time people saying yes in 3 questions, what would that do to the time that you're spending in a presentation? The other 50%, we're either going to get a no or a maybe. If I get a no or a maybe, this is where we go. All right, the listing gods are with us. I love this. So if I get a no or maybe, it's going to be this. Okay, perfect. I understand that this is a big decision, and you want to make sure that you're making the best one possible. I want to be clear, that definitely is my intention. So provided that what I say to you does make sense, and you feel comfortable and confident that I can not only help you maximize value and get the home sold, but that my team is going to look out for your good interest through the process. I want to be clear, I've already brought the appropriate paperwork, and we're ready to get started as soon as possible when the time is right for you. Right? So what have I done there? When a seller, how many of you have been in a listing presentation where the seller says, no, we're not going to do it today? Or where they say, maybe. What does that do to us internally? Does it lower our status? Does it cause me to kind of maybe shrink up a little bit and say, all right, I have no power. How fast can I get through this one? What this is doing is it's letting them know, I just mean business. I really am here to start this with you. I want to help you. And that's the purpose. And it raises back our status. Does that make sense? Not from ego, just to let them know. So then along those lines, you were kind enough to share with me that the most important things that you were looking for in the agent that you hire to help is you want someone that knows your neighborhood. You want someone that's going to be truthful with you about pricing and someone that can communicate really well with you. Is there anything else that you would be looking for from me today as your agent, Mr. and Mrs. Seller, that would cause you to feel just comfortable and confident just to proceed and put me to work? Now, they're either going to say no or they're going to say usually something that we need to know in order to close them. They're going to tell us their truth. That's why that's a valuable question. So they might say, we need to know your commission. I'll say that's valid, that's important, because your bottom line numbers are important. May I make a request? Sure. Let's get through the market analysis. Let's understand financially where you're at. And then I'm going to plug all those numbers in to ensure that you know your bottom line based on what would be correct for the market. And then let's see if it'll be a fit for you and where you're going. What I can assure you is commission won't be a reason that we don't do business together. Fair enough? Great. So what did I do? I put that aside. Let's handle that later. So now, at the culmination of our time together, there's really only 3 potential outcomes. The first is you may decide to list your home with me. And that would be great. As I shared myself, team, and my staff, we're super excited to have that privilege to serve you. The second potential outcome is that you may decide, for whatever reason, not to list the home with me, and that's okay too. And then the third potential outcome, and this is just as important as the other 2. If for some reason, if I honestly felt, really felt that I would not be able to help you get what you wanted in the time that you wanted, then I may very humbly decline the opportunity to serve you. And the only reason that I would do this is I would much rather earn your business with integrity, being very honest and straightforward with you with regards to what's reasonable and what's realistic given the market. And any one of those options I'm really okay with. Now, what have I done there?
Made it open.
I made it open, exactly. What else have I done? Any other ideas?
You put it in their court.
I put it in their court, and thank you. You're exactly correct. I made them know that me getting a listing is nowhere as important as them knowing the truth, right? And what that does is the trust factor in that moment goes up. And when trust goes up, we connect. And when we connect, guess what? That's when people are ready to move forward. Make sense? So this is a very vital part of this presentation. So you were kind enough to share with me that the main reason that you're selling this home is that you wanted to move to Indianapolis because your daughter lives there and she's having your first grandchild, isn't she? Isn't that exciting? Congratulations. If I remember correctly, you said that the baby was due mid-August. Is that right? Okay, good. Now what have I done right there? The TV show Columbo, do you know what I'm talking about? So Columbo was like this character that he was like a detective, and he would solve murder mysteries, right? And so the way that Columbo was effective is he doesn't just come out and just get in someone's face and say, you did it. It would just be like he was about to leave, and he'd be like, you know, there's just this one more thing that he would do. And then he would step forward, and he would solve the mystery, right? So this is this part of the presentation. Okay, so you see, this is my Columbo, right? You need to be to Indianapolis. Do you want to be there before the baby's born? Or is it okay if you're there after the baby's born? Wife looks at husband, no, we're going to be there before the baby's born. Okay, so now that's like 90 days from now, mid-August, which means we're going to have to get the home under contract in the next 30 days because it's going to take another 30 to 45 days to close. And we need a little time gap in there just to be safe. Now, we can definitely help you do that. I guess what I wanted to know is, are you okay with that timeline? Right? So that's becoming very clear and letting them know, because we're about to go into pricing, we're reiterating their motivation and we're making them very clear on what their timeline means to them. Does that make sense? Okay. And then just so that I'm aware, under normal conditions, who's going to be here for showings, or who would you like me to contact? Now, when I ask that question and they respond, oh, you can contact me, what are they doing? They're affirming that we're moving this process of listing with me, we're moving on down the train tracks, right? We're going there. And then, but these are simple closes, right? These are things that are getting their brain just, yep, we're on this roll, here we go, here we go. And then as far as that goes, I'm also aware that part of the value that we bring to the situation is communication. Now, I know that everybody has a different preferred method of communication. So as things are progressing, as we have showings or when we get offers that come in and things of that nature, what is your preferred method of communication? Would you prefer that we text, email, or call you? Now, when they give me a response, again, they're moving the train down the road, right? They're committing again. So, and then when we do get offers that come in, I can send it to you via DocuSign. So the moment she gives me the email address, they're buying in again. So how many times have I closed so far? A lot. A lot, right? Have we gotten through the 8, Dawn?
I think so.
The 8 that we need. Okay. Now, have I listened and proven that I've been listening to them?
Yes.
Okay. And have I gathered all and enough information for me now to give a presentation that will be meaningful to them?
Yes.
Okay, good, because now we're going to get into price. And this is key. Always have your script with you. And then you also shared with me that in terms of price, you were wanting to list the property at like $600,000. Now, regardless of whether that is like a pie in the sky thing or not, we just state it just like that. We don't want to be like, you know, wincing because their price is so ridiculous. They'll look at you and be like, Mark, do you have to use the bathroom? No, we're poker face because the market is the third party at the table that is going to educate this client. We are not going to give that information to them. I'm crystal clear on the situation, and again, I feel super confident, provided the opportunity that we can help. The good news is we really only have to focus on 2 things during our time together today. The first is your motivation to sell. And you've made that clear to me. You're getting Indianapolis because you're going to see your grandbaby when she's born that day. And I'm excited to have that privilege to serve. Now, the second thing that we'll have to look at is the price that we place on your home. Notice, did I say marketing? Did I say anything about, the BS buyers that I'm saying that I have in Venezuela? No, because marketing is marketing is marketing, right? My Facebook is your Facebook, right? My ads, my Matterport are your ads. All of that is the same. But who's going to come in and let the seller know the truth? And why do agents have a problem speaking and talking about pricing? In a professional sense, would we want our doctor to tell us the truth? Do we want our attorney to tell us the truth? Do we want our accountant to tell us the truth? I want the truth all the time, even if it's bad, because I want to know what I'm going to be faced with. And we owe that to them, right? So I've prepared, which I've sent it out to you in advance, and I've also brought it with me, and I'm prepared to share it with you, a market analysis. There's two parts to the research that I do. The first part is what's active and available for sale right now and not selling. And this is really important because your neighbors, they've done us a favor. Do you know what that is? They've already tested the market for us at certain prices, and it's not working. And now we can avoid that mistake, right? Now, the second data point that we'll look at is what's sold and closed. Because what something's worth really is what someone's willing to pay for it, right? So as we look at this information together as a team, what's going to end up coming to the surface is not a pinpoint to the penny in terms of price number, but instead a very tight, realistic range. Does that make sense? Good. I always like to ask homeowners, are you familiar with the way that buyers determine value for a home like this and in a community like this? And they're going to say one of two things, yes or no. Either way, regardless of what they say, we're going to have the same response. Buyers determine value by comparison shopping. Because they might go off on a little bit of tangent and say, oh yeah, I know, it's the schools, it's the location, it's the this, it's the do they like it. And then what you're going to do, if they say they know and they say all that, then you're still going to say the same thing by saying, yeah, exactly, it's the schools, it's the location, it's the if they like it, and they're going to comparison shop, right? We're bringing that in at the end. What that means is buyers are going to look at your home, they're going to factor in its price, its features, and its condition. And then they're going to compare it with similar homes that are either on the market, their price, features, and condition, or homes that have recently sold, their price, features, and conditions. And from all that information, the buying public is going to make a determination as to where they feel comfortable making you an offer. Does that make sense, Mr. and Mrs. Seller? Yes. Now, here's a question. When you're a buyer, what are you thinking about homes and their prices? What do we think about it when we're a buyer? Pardon?
The best deal.
Best deal? They're too expensive, right? When we're a seller, what do we think about our home? Yeah, exactly. My house is the best. I mean, I feed the deer in my backyard. I do. So, and I'm thinking to myself, I actually had a seller say that to me one time. I feed the deer in my backyard, and I'm thinking, okay, that has nothing to do with an appraisal. I could just see an appraiser, like going through the backyard, counting the deer. 1 deer, 2 deer, 3 deer. So, again, now we're getting to the part where we're educating the seller as to how they need to see and have a perspective on pricing. So, I find it super helpful. Sometimes it can be a challenge. I'm not suggesting that it'll be true for you, though. Just to really try to do our best to look at this information through the eyes of the buyer. Because I'm aware that the buyer's hat, and I actually do this in my presentation, right, is very different from the seller's hat. So the question that we're going to want to be asking ourselves as we go through this information in terms of what's available for sale, price, features, and condition, also what's recently sold, price, features, and condition, the question that you'd want to ask yourself is, where would you feel comfortable making an offer on your home if you were buying it all over again that would be reflective of fair market value? Now, what did I just do with that word fair? I gave their supercomputer an assignment. Everything from here forward is fair. So I'm educating them as to how they need to think before we're even looking at the CMA. So as we review this information together as a team, we're going to see that realistic range emerge. From there, it's just going to come down to strategy. I'll go over the various strategies that we have available to us. And then, provided that what I say to you makes sense, and I've answered all your questions, we can go ahead and take care of all the appropriate paperwork. Fair enough? Okay, great. So now I've guided them to the pricing presentation, and I've set them up as to how they need to perceive this information. When we go through the market analysis, how many of you still present from paper? We're all using a tablet? Bring a tablet. Because you know what? When I present from, if I do present from paper, anybody still just goes like this to paper because they're so used to opening the pictures up. Right? Yeah. And we didn't ride into the listing presentation on a horse. And we're not going to calculate the net sheet with an abacus, right? So we've got to get current. So I would present from a tablet. Well, let me ask you this. Is it more powerful if I tell them or if I get them to tell me?
If they tell you, if the seller tells
If they tell me. Because they're not going to argue with their own information, will they? They will argue with mine.
Absolutely.
Now, how many agents present from authority? Well, you should, and I think, and this is what you should do. And in all reality, then, when we have to call them back a month later, and we have to tell them, hey, we need to adjust the price, then what are we going to hear? You said, then we're owning the price. And remember, there's a third party at that table when we're presenting. The market. Thank you. And we always want that third party to guide all of us to that decision. So what we're going to do is we go through the comparables. We're going to say, what price were they asking for this home? And we're going to get them to say it. We're not going to say anything. We're going to point to it. We're going to say, how many days was this property on the market? And they're going to tell me. And they're going to say 90 days. And then I'm going to say, that seems like a long time. You've got to be to Indianapolis because your granddaughter is going to be born in 90 days, right? Yeah. Okay, now, how many bedrooms, how many baths, and how many square feet? We're going to go through all those questions, and they're going to say it all. We get them to say it all. Because then they're owning the information, right? Their supercomputer now is processing that information. So when we get through that first comparable, typically I like to have 6 comps, 3 that have sold. Ideally, if we can have at least 2 that are active and on the market. And we want the ones that are telling a story. In other words, they're on the market for an extended period of time. They're on for longer than what the market is supposed to be at, right? We bring those comps so that they can self-discover that. We're going to get through all 6 of those comparables, asking the question, and then after each comparable, we're going to ask this question. We're going to ask, so I'm curious, would you consider that this home is similar to your house, not as nice, or nicer? And then I'm doing 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. And every time that they say something, I'm writing similar, not whatever they say. We're going to come to an agreement. Because then, when I ask this final question, and I say, okay, so those are all the comparables. Again, the key is if you were buying your home all over again, what price would you feel comfortable making an offer on this home based on what we've seen that would be comparative or would cause you to feel comfortable making an offer that would be based on what? Fair market value. And then there's going to be silence. There's going to be usually, and we shut up. At that point, we don't talk. Because where are decisions made? Are they made when people are talking or in the silence? In the silence. And what I've discovered is, including myself, I used to be the agent that would just talk and talk and talk because I had nothing that was important to say and I was so nervous, I just kept talking. And they never had an opportunity to actually come and make a decision. So what will happen in that silence, and you've all seen this, right, is the husband's going to look at the wife's going to look at the husband, and they're going to be like, well, yeah, okay. We're seeing what you're telling us, Mark. And then I'll say, yeah, the market is I'm not telling them, right? So based on that, I mean, in your timeline of needing to get to Indianapolis in the next 90 days, what do you think the correct price would be? And they're going to say a number, or they might say, like if the actual real correct number should be around 500, well, what am I going to say next? Could we just list it at 525? Could we just try it at 550? Yeah, we can do that. You're the boss. You're in charge. And what I'd like to do, if it's okay, is I'd like to go over the 2 strategies that we have in pricing homes in today's market, with my only intention being that you can become clear on which strategy will serve you best. Would that be okay? And then whatever you decide, I'm going to support you 100%. Now, is that any of this? No. Now they're all open ears. So the first strategy that we have is we might choose to price it a little higher, because we want to leave room to negotiate, right? And because we can always come down, right? We can never go up, right? And let me tell you, with this strategy, oftentimes what we find that happen is, let's go back and let's reference, remember comparable number 3? That home was so much like yours. And in fact, did you remember it was on the market for 120 days? Let's look at the history and why that perhaps happened. So then we all know how to get into history in the MLS. We go through and we know that the history has shown that they started at like 6 and then they went to, I love these price reductions, 590, 5.9, right? And then they went to 590 and then, there's like 6 price reductions and we're showing them, the market is telling us, you can see where this seller maybe made a mistake. And it took them 120 days till finally they got to the right price. They got to 505. And then look, within 7 days, the market responded and it gave them what they wanted. The first strategy, and the problem that we face with that one also, is not just time for the seller, but it's when I'm working with buyers and a property is on the market, what's one of the first questions you think that they ask me? How many days is it on the market? And then they ask me, and when they say, well, oh, that's a long time, they'll say, well, what's wrong with the property? And now that property has a stigma, right? Now, there's nothing wrong with your house, Mr. and Mrs. Seller, right? We don't want your home to get a stigma, do we? No, of course not. So that's one strategy. Now, the next strategy is we price right where the market is. Or maybe we go just a hair below so that we could seem competitive. And even in today's market with interest rates doubled and with inventory rising, we're seeing that if we're at the right price and we promote it aggressively, sellers are still getting more than one offer at the same time. And when there's a multiple offer situation, who wins? Does the seller win or does the buyer win? The seller wins. Now we're asking that question to the seller, right? And they're saying that answer. So I'm curious, Mr. and Mrs. Seller, these are the 2 strategies that we have at our disposal. Of these 2 strategies, based on you getting the most for your home and also getting to Indianapolis in time for your baby, your grandchild being born, which of these 2 strategies do you think makes more sense to you? And then, shh, thank you. Dave gets it. Shh. We say nothing after that. And then they're looking at each other, they're coming to a decision, and they're like, okay, we'll do strategy number 2, right? Now, was there any of this throughout that? Did I have to make them wrong? No. The market, the third party that was at the table, brought all that decision, plus all the little closes along the way, caused them to feel comfortable about it. Make sense? I mean, I'm looking at your business and, you're doing easily $300,000 in GCI a year, easily, if not more.
I got in proximity to Aaron and he basically said in not so many words, you're insulting sellers by walking into their home and not knowing what to say. So I think the first year I doubled my income. And then I think with Aaron, the next year I doubled it again. And then it started to then it was going up, 20%, 25% each year.
Hey, everybody.